So I'd also like to bring into the discussion now Dan Perry, international affairs expert, joining us live from Tel Aviv. Mr. Perry, with regards to this latest development as far as the U.S. and Iran are concerned and the fact that now might be the time that a deal is signed, what's your take on essentially the PR messaging that Mr. Vadim addressed as far as how Iran is controlling the situation by possibly prolonging this deal? What's your take?
I agree with Mr. Vadim. Iran clearly wants to project that when Trump says jump, they say no, essentially. And this is part and parcel of the broader picture where Iran feels like they're winning because they simply have longer staying power in what has become an economic war. Despite the occasional kinetic action that we see, basically this is about the U.S. having utterly failed to pull together a global consensus that some economic pain is going to be necessary in order to dislodge this horrendous regime in Iran. Whereas the Iranians, for their part, since they don't really have to worry about public opinion too much, and they've shown that they're happy to massacre thousands should the people try to arise, they can suffer any amount of pain. And indeed, it isn't total hypocrisy. It isn't just that the IRGC is run by mafia criminals that get rich while the people suffer. They're also quite prepared to die because I think they understand that U.S. and Israel's intelligence advantage hasn't disappeared with the decapitation of the previous version of the regime. But they don't seem to care, or at least they convincingly project that they don't. And so they feel they have the upper hand, and therefore they're able to do what they always do, again, as Mr. Vadim said, which is to draw out negotiations, never really have it be final, always try to humiliate the rival just a little bit more, and end up watching as the rival becomes increasingly desperate because, generally speaking, the other side does have public opinion to worry about, to finally close the deal, cut the losses, and go away.
Mr. Perry, I'd love to essentially discuss what has been reported with regards to the UAE and, of course, with Iran. As far as the UAE is concerned, they've essentially paid billions of dollars to Iran to stop Iran from striking against the UAE. Do you believe that Trump had anything to do with this in whatever fashion that he could have had? Tell us more.
Seems to be part of the deal, and in general, it looks like the upcoming arrangement with Iran will involve a lot of further financial rewards for good behavior that could again come via the UAE, and it reflects a very sad manifestation of what we were discussing before, which is that the feeling, not just in the United States, but with America's allies in the region, is that a method has to be found to end the war. UAE, for a time, wanted the war to continue because they were the most hawkish in having concluded of all the Gulf allies that the Iranian regime simply has to go. But now, like everyone else, including the American body politic and the entire global community, have concluded that the U.S. has no plan to bring down the regime. And because of this incredible miscalculation of having attacked without a coherent plan for responding to blocking of the Strait of Hormuz, this just gave Iran such a weapon, asymmetric though it may be, for them to use that the regime can at this point not be brought down. The UAE, like other countries, might have had a hope that in an alternative scenario, a prolonged blockade, maybe not just sea, but also air and land of Iran, might bring down the regime, but that would have required 3, 4, 5, 6 months of pain across the global economy. It became clear that no one's ready for it. So the UAE is now very much inclined to do whatever it takes to finesse a way out of this impasse where it looks like Iran, incredibly, has somehow, strategically speaking, despite being militarily pummeled, has the upper hand.
Mr. Perry, of course, with everything that's going on, can you essentially enlighten our viewers on how the repercussions of this memorandum of understanding, this demining exercise, and of course the Strait of Hormuz essentially now being given not back to Iran, but there have been reports about the fact that Iran essentially wants to still have a stake in charging for maritime efforts and measures in the Strait of Hormuz will essentially upend or affect the entire global stability as far as financial or finances are concerned. What's your take?
You just answered your own question. Obviously, if these reports are true, then the ramifications are profound. However, I think we do have to be just a little bit humble about understanding that there's a lot of misinformation out there. There are claims and denials and counterclaims and threats. Trump is not a credible a voice, and the Iranians certainly aren't, and frankly speaking, neither are the Pakistanis. So I don't know what the final deal will look like. I know what Iran claimed, and I know that Trump blustered and huffed and puffed and said it isn't true. I when these are the characters involved, I think we just have to grab a beer and sit back and see what actually comes of it. But if it's true that Iran hasn't agreed to hand over the uranium and is still messing around with the Strait of Hormuz and will demand at least some permissioning, as is being reported, if not an actual toll, and continues to try to lead Oman down this dark path so that the Strait of Hormuz, as a result of the war, becomes no longer free for maritime passage. That obviously will affect other choke points around the world. It'll very much disrupt potential Pacific sea commerce as well because of the very Strait of Taiwan in particular, that you have there. And it mainly projects that the idea of sea security and the security of commerce on the high seas and maritime law as backed up by the United States is no longer there, and that the U.S. was a paper tiger. And it would be a little bit analogous. I don't want to go too far, but it's a little bit like what has been exposed in the Ukraine war with Russia, where so many people thought that Russia could just storm across Ukraine in a matter of days, and Ukraine, a seemingly weaker party, found ways to prevent that from happening. Now, it's not exactly the same because the U.S. is a serious country and Russia, not so much. But they have nuclear weapons, of course. So it's different, but in a way, this too would suggest that U.S. power is much more limited than we had thought, because in the modern era, one can so easily and inexpensively create weapons that are primitive on the one hand, but enable you to disrupt all kinds of things on the other. And the effort to fight them is ungainly and unbelievably expensive and not particularly effective. So pretty soon, you know, a bunch of kids with a slingshot will be able to disrupt global trade. I mean, that's kind of where we're headed because I say slingshot metaphorically. That's where we're
Mm.
headed because of, you know, where technology has brought us. And so it's nothing short of bad. And I go back to what I say. The U.S. has stumbled into a strategic cul-de-sac because they didn't think ahead, and it's nothing short of stunning.
Let's discuss that metaphor and let's dig deeper, Mr. Perry. Essentially, do you say that due to the fact that when it comes down to what the future looks like, Dubai is apparently set to have a IT forward economy by 2070, for example. Now, if one individual decided to essentially turn off all the data centers that ran that economy, then yes, essentially one individual with a slingshot could upend global trade. Is that what you're alluding to? Tell us more.
Yes. I'm saying the democratization of technology and of scientific knowledge and of various dangerous materials, not just fissile materials, even biological materials. If the knowledge spreads too far and goes beyond state actors to, you know, rogue non-state actors, and then beyond rogue non-state organizations to individuals, we're looking at a situation where one angry, crazed, but intelligent youth in some country can create horrible biological disasters and, you know, poison our rivers and our seas. And we haven't figured out a particularly good way to prevent this from happening. And I'm always a little bit amazed there isn't more terrorism because so many people have access to the materials that can cause dirty bombs. I mean, I don't want to go too far in what I say in public, but we know that the ability to do such damage, essentially to create terrorism, and we're talking here in a case of Iran about a version of state terrorism, um, is spreading very far. And so
Mm.
yes, that's kind of where we are. And if we ever reach a point where one crazed individual can poison our water supplies, that'll be the extreme case scenario. Right now, we're in the middle, where one rogue country run by people who are suicidal, who don't care a fig for their own population, can pretty much do as they wish without even spending a lot of money. And
Mm.
this war, the way it's unfolded, despite the initial stunning success of the Israeli American intelligence operation in particular, the way it's gone down has sort of surfaced these global dangers and has given Iran cause to believe that it's riding high. Now, again, before we celebrate the Iranian victory too much, we have to understand it's completely conditional on them being diabolical monsters who don't care how much their people suffer. But that condition is unfortunately met in the case of this regime. So here we are.